This is a land of magic, of music, kings and thrones. A people of saints, scholars and poets. A land of myth and legend. A country scarred by rebellion and lifted by freedom. But also a land where the language is dying, where the forests are gone and the wildlife scarce. Where division and disconnection cut deeper than rivers. This is Ireland. This is our land. And yet, for all its beauty, most of us barely step into it. We don't live in it, we don't move through it. Somehow, on an island shaped by nature, we've built a culture of the great indoors. We've conned ourselves into thinking it's the weather, but it's not. Invisible barriers subconsciously shape how we spend time outside and even what activities we consider possible doing outside. Facilities that are common elsewhere but absent here leave Ireland's relationship with the outdoors severely limited, and the psychological effects are profound. Our public transport system doesn't link people in towns and cities to the land around them. There are no buses that bring people to trailheads, lakes or beaches in the way that they do in Europe and America. If you don't own a car, well, bad luck really, nature is off limits. Where are the barbecue areas, the designated camping grounds, the outdoor showers and the public toilets? Where is our picnic culture? It's so limiting not having these facilities because it massively affects how people use the space. So subconsciously, the outdoors has so much less scope all of a sudden. And it's all we've ever known, right? Using an outdoor space in Ireland could create hysteria. There's people enjoying wine with a picnic. Call the guards, a group of campers by a lake. Where are the choppers? Bring in the SWAT team. So camping here is pretty frowned upon and seen as a threat. And yet, designated camping areas are a huge part of the culture across Europe and America. It's inexpensive and deeply rewarding, but it doesn't exist here. Everywhere is private land and you had better not be on it. You can't camp at a quilcha forest, so it's a game of luck trying to get out and enjoy the Emerald Isle. A city break in Ireland. Have I won the lotto and nobody told me? A city break in my own country at the weekend. You gotta be kidding me. Camping is a low-cost, high-value activity, but the truth is, if you go camping, it feels wrong. Mostly because people end up wild camping because there are no designated camping spots. And if you're out wild camping, you might piss someone off. Whereas at least if people had designated spots, they could camp there. In countries across the world, you can find barbecue areas in parks, in forests, in recreational spaces, but they don't exist here. A barbecue outside. Are you having a laugh? But cooking and sharing food is so normal. It's kind of done in lots of places, but here it has to be contained. And for generations, we've been told directly and indirectly that the Irish people can't be trusted outdoors. Don't trust them with a fire pit. Don't trust them to camp. Don't trust them to drink outside, or even to gather in parks or put rubbish in a bin. The state doesn't provide these facilities that every other country considers basic. And I think we internalize that. We have such little connection to the land, and we've lost our culture. While even Soviet Russia was building hiking trails, picnic areas, and public parks, we were consumed by poverty, civil war, and the really tight grip of religious institutions. And by the time we emerged from all of that, the culture of outdoors had already been established in the rest of the world, and we just never circle back to it here. It passed us by, and we've not kind of reclaimed it. But reclaim it we must, because if we don't, we're destined to live apart from the beauty of the island. It's genuinely hard to envisage the huge impact that having access to our own island would grant us. And we are a pretty frazzled people. I mean, you've walked around the streets lately, you've looked into people's eyes. Some time in nature might be exactly what they need. Improved well-being, reduced stress and anxiety and depression. Being in nature lowers cortisol levels, steadies the heart rate, and improves sleep quality. Our circadian rhythms, our immune system, our mood, and our resilience all benefit from being outdoors. Being in nature restores attention, improves memory, and sparks creativity. It lowers blood pressure and improves heart health. Kids who spend more time outdoors have lower rates of ADHD symptoms, which is great because 100% of people have ADHD, it seems. Culturally, nature reconnects us to a sense of belonging. Our land was stolen from us for over 800 years, but it's ours again now. Kind of, not really. And honestly, it took the pandemic for us to start rekindling a connection with the outdoors. In cities, outdoor street culture took off almost overnight, helped by a few regulation changes. And there's also been a renewed love of hiking and walking, but the best outdoor renaissance for me has to be the advent of beach sauna culture. And it's resulted in a surge in sea swimming with all the knock-on health benefits that go along with that. The cold Atlantic meets the warm heat of a sauna across Ireland's rugged coastline. And it's hard to imagine at this stage a time when they weren't there. It's been the most organic explosion of outdoor culture in the history of the state. People who would have never used a sauna or visited a beach now do so regularly. These are social places where people connect. They're places of renewed mental well-being. And all of this happened organically. But like with all good things, that's not good enough, you know. There's a bureaucrat out there somewhere watching, wondering how can they shunt this up for everyone. Because there's new regulations on the way designed to throw cold water all over this. Low-cost, high-value activities are a threat. And these new regulations say that saunas must be removed daily. Why? Why? Genuinely, I mean, why? What's the benefit of that? They've been fine in situ for years, but now they need to be moved at the end of every day? Who wrote that bylaw? Was it the petrol and diesel industry? You know, it's much better to be shuffling hundreds of saunas around the country twice a day. Totally. Actually, yeah, it makes sense the more I think about it. Good job. So hauling wood-fired saunas in and out of a beach car park every day makes reliable sauna use almost impossible. Secondly, they want to curtail the opening hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah, a curfew on a sauna. I mean, it's totally state overreach. You can't enjoy a sauna at sunrise or sunset anymore because the council says so. I mean, really? Even public parks are open earlier and close later. If it's good for the people, it must be controlled, it seems. Sauna owners will need a license to operate as well, a license that may or may not be granted depending on, who knows, you know, someone's mood that day. It'll cost over €1,000 per year, which isn't unreasonable, but you know that's not going to be invested back into the beaches, right? They're not going to use that money to enhance the coastal experience. That would make too much sense, you know, too European. There's also a mandatory €6.5 million public liability insurance for each sauna. Who wrote that one? The insurance industry. Imagine if they only had to have €500,000 worth of cover and pay a much lower premium, but that might be seen as too pro-small business. Now, there are good bylaws in there as well because, you know, regulation and bylaws done correctly is a sensible thing. It kind of benefits everyone. But there's little point in discussing those because the bad ones are so bad they could be the death knell of the sauna culture itself. In reality, all of this probably stemmed from someone who hates that other people go and enjoy their beach. You know, they travel from other places to enjoy the beach, and if that person lives near the beach, they're like, this is unacceptable, you know? So councillors are hardwired to look after the needs of a few constituents. That's how the country runs. The needs of society, the needs of people's mental health and well-being, of small business owners, those needs come last. And that's a huge problem. Councils could provide these facilities if people demanded them. So, you know, we dislike ourselves so much that basic facilities outside are non-existent. Is that it? To many, some of these suggestions might be unpopular, and that comes back to trust. We don't trust each other with the land because we don't have a relationship with it. We don't show respect. Ireland is one of the most littered countries I have been in. From our cities to our suburbs to rural countryside, forest and beaches, it is almost impossible not to stumble upon litter. And for me, this is the clearest sign of our disconnect with the land. Some people just don't care, but that needs to change too. We need to instill some pride in the country and in ourselves. Obviously, the system that we have for litter is not working. Councils don't want to put bins. Tim Lucy, for example, the former chief executive of Cork County Council, once said that if he had his way, there'd be no bins. Yeah, that's the person who's in charge of providing services, what they had to say about providing services. Since the 1800s, bins have been part of the landscape, coming from gay Paris. Paris. But even the ancient Romans had a basic system of waste collection. Up until the millennium, bins and refuse collection was a public service funded from general taxation. There was no extra cost. It was like the street lights or road maintenance. But from the year 2000 on, the state offloaded that responsibility to private contractors, and the country has just been a littered mess since. From illegal dumping to a refusal to provide bins because people might put rubbish in them, the state has really excelled. It's time to fix our culture, and we don't need to look far for guidance. We could look to literally any other first world country. Barbecue areas, showers, changing rooms at beaches, toilets, bins, designated camping spots. These are the most basic elements of enjoying the outdoors, and there are people in authority who would rather gouge their eyes out than see people entrusted with the outdoors. But if we don't build this culture, then we never will, you know? It's a very binary choice ahead of us. What kind of Ireland do you want to live in? Maybe you think like the state, that encouraging people to use the outdoors for their health and for their leisure is a threat. But if you do, please ask yourself, why? Why? We were once people who sang with the land, and now we hide from it. But it doesn't have to be this way. The outdoors isn't a luxury, it's who we are. The rivers, the fields, the forests, that should have been our inheritance, and it still waits for us. All it takes is trust. Trust in ourselves, trust in each other, and trust that we can go outside and not just make shit of the place. A culture that only lives indoors does not thrive. Look around. The choice is ours, to keep retreating from the land or to meet it again, to build the trails, the campfires, and the spaces that allow us to belong to Ireland as much as Ireland belongs to us. The great indoors is not our destiny, it's our habit. And habits can be broken. Just read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. In any case, step outside. The land is waiting.